here today to talk about many things, including dystopian films and the movies in question that the Summers brothers have decided are worthy of mention. Hello, Summers brothers, Robert and Russell.
What's up, buddy?
Evening, yes.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Hanging in there, man. You know, it's been strange days for sure.
So, you guys staying busy? I know that you just sent me your short film that we can't show anybody else yet that we worked on together. Are you happy with that? Are you excited to have that finally done?
I mean, as happy as you can ever be when you finish your movie and feel you've compromised on every aspect of it. But yes, we're very excited and we're very thrilled to get it out there soon.
Yeah, I think I'm just happy to kind of be done with it.
Yeah. Even though we're not, we kept polishing it, and even this weekend we had a couple of things we had to fix on it. So
yeah, so Chris is in
hit points you're on.
So
it's your producer,
your movie as well.
So if you don't like it, it's Chris's fault.
That's right.
I did it.
Literally,
it's all me. I did the whole thing. Don't blame anyone else.
I will not. I will definitely not blame anyone else.
They were going to do this amazing whole tracking shot thing. They had rented a crane and all this, and it was really cool. They paid all this money to get George Clooney, and I was like, fuck all that. What people really want to see is some actors that they're not familiar with wear old t-shirts in a bed.
I think that Chris really nailed it. He knows what the people want. He's got his finger on the pulse.
I do.
And so we did what a good directors do. We listen to our producer.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah. So.
Clooney is still pissed at me. He's like, I don't
think that's the only reason that he's pissed off at you, but yes, several.
It's probably because I was just fucking with him. I told him to go to Guero's for Tex-Mex, and he took me seriously.
If you're from California, that's what everyone tells you. All our friends from LA,
what is
people
that?
in LA tell other people in LA to go to Guero's. So
I'm like, is the internet in California like 20 years old or something? I'm like, nobody goes to Guero's here. Your tourists go there.
Somebody started that trend, and now everybody, that's someone in the 90s went there, and then they told everybody in LA. And then when people went to Austin to be authentic, they would say they went to Guero's. And so it's passed down from generation to generation. So Seinfeld's been there. Bill Clinton's been there. did Obama go there?
I can't remember.
I don't think Obama went there, but if during South by, it's awash with celebrity, and then Tarantino put it in Death Proof.
Yeah, so. I don't understand it. There's like pretty much every other Tex-Mex place is better. I don't know. It's not bad. It's good. It's just, it's Tex-Mex you'd expect to get if you were in California. Hey, this place is a Tex-Mex place. You should go there.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why it's more popular with people from California. It's more what they expect out of Tex-Mex than,
anywhere else. Like I was in Miami, and my sister-in-law brought us to a place that was. Oh, no. This is great. This is great Tex-Mex. Not Miami, Orlando, and it was passable.
Yeah. I mean, I think we get pretty snobby here, which I think we could do better at.
Also, if I'm somewhere else, I don't need to get Tex-Mex. Right. I don't want to get Tex-Mex in another state. Give me what you guys have.
Right. Very true. Very true. Mike says, went to Guerrero after a movie. I was pretty disappointed. Yeah, I went because it was in a Tarantino movie. Understood. Fair. You can't even go to the chili parlor.
Yeah. All right.
I'd say, go to the chili parlor. He picked well for that one, but they fucking closed down because everyone sucks.
Did they?
Anyway,
did COVID take out the Texas chili parlor?
I want to say it closed before that.
Did it?
I think so.
News to me. I'm really plugged into what's going on in Austin, Texas. So.
Well, I mean, you're busy. You're working on films. You're rejecting George Clooney. You got a lot of stuff going on.
You rejected Clooney. That was your choice. But
well, I mean, I told him it was you guys.
Well, speaking of that, I had several things I want to talk about when Chris brought us onto the show. So my thing right now is I really always love to find out what people are doing, what they're into right now. So I wanted to ask Chris. I want to go through the basics, but we'll start with books. So have you been reading more in quarantine or less in quarantine?
Way more.
Yeah,
way more. And part of that is because it helps me to keep from going insane. Right. You know what I mean? There's something that your mind does. Like either you grow up with people telling you, oh, you don't want to melt your mind with television. Okay. Television isn't melting your mind. What it does is you get too used to watching it and nothing but you stop reading. And that's what melts your mind is not reading. Because I'll tell you, I go 6 months sometimes to read like a book in 6 months and then go, okay, well, I'm going to start reading again. And within a week, I can tell I'm just more on top of it. Like I'm remembering things better. I'm like, wow, I turned stupid from not reading. That is a real thing. If you don't read, you are not as on top of things as you are if you do. And I'd say comics count, but weirdly they don't. I don't have that same experience if I'm reading a whole ton of comics. And that's partially because it's easier to just scan that, I think.
I think that there's not much you can do for yourself besides maybe eating right and exercise as a person than reading. Yeah. I just think it's a really valuable thing. And I think a lot of people don't make it a habit. And then as they get older, it never becomes a habit, which is too bad. But that's just unfortunate. They don't fall in love with books I think it's a great
thing. You don't have to read. Yeah, you don't have to classics or anything like that. Yeah. Just be reading something that you're interested in. I always, it's always a disappointing answer when you're what's next to your nightstand, what you've been reading, and you just get I don't like to read.
So speaking of, what are the last few books that you've read?
Well, I talked about this 2 shows ago, I believe it was, but after Patience died, our good friend Patience, who was on Deliberations of Doom with the 3 of us, her husband had to leave town very quickly because his dad was like, I can come this weekend and I'll pay for everything, but only this weekend to come get you and bring you back to your hometown, which he wanted to do. And he was like, I don't have time to move all this stuff. And he's like, Chris, if there's anything you want, come get it. And he ended up leaving all of Patience's books. There was just no room to take them. He's like, you can have them if you want them. I mean, I hate to think they're just going to throw them away or something. So it's like, well, if nothing else, I'll go through them and sell them at half price books or something. I know she and my taste didn't always coincide. And sure enough, a good portion of it is like, Wiccan spells and the folklore history of a small county in Ireland and stuff like that.
But enough about the stuff Chris likes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so she has all this stuff. There's tons of Dinar Kuntz, which I'm like, and lots of Stephen King, which I don't have a problem with, but I haven't read any Stephen King in forever, right? I think Dr. Sleep was the only one I've read because I was like, well, The Shining is one of my favorite horror novels of all time. I got to read the sequel to it. But it's probably been before that, like 20 years since I read a Stephen King book. There's a lot I missed. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to read some of these that I'd heard good things about, like some of the latter day stuff, because she has everything pretty much. And it just got me on a roll. And I was like, wow, I'm really enjoying just catching up on Stephen King. So I've read like something like 9 Stephen King novels in a row, which, they're Stephen King novels. So that's almost as tall as me. And if you pile them on top of each other.
And how was the results? How was it varying in quality? Was it consistent quality?
No, it's very varying in quality. In fact, it's weirdly, Dr. Sleep is probably the worst of all of the ones I've read. It's not a terrific novel. It's okay.
So what was the best?
I think the movie's way better. The best, got a little fly in here. The best would be probably for me, Duma Key, which is one of the ones I always see on like half price books and go, what the fuck is that about? It looks like a vacation like guide. And sure enough, it's like it's all people who are like 70 something. And this dude who gets brain damage and loses an arm in an accident and his wife leaves him and he goes to retire in Florida and evil shit happens. And it's great. I was like, wow, that was really good.
Did it have a good ending? Did he stick the landing? Because I know that's always the thing.
That's the thing is like anything past 1996, 1997, he like something changed with him as a writer and he started getting much better at the endings because almost all the stuff I've read, I liked the endings for. Yeah, I mean, the worst thing I can say is Insomnia kind of towards the end takes this like aside for about 50 pages to go, and it's also all part of the Dark Tower universe. You're like, stop. Okay, you're not going to make fetch happen. Okay, so he did make the Dark Tower happen, but still,
yeah.
As someone who hadn't read those, I was like, I don't know what this is about. I just want you to get back to the story. But yeah, that's pretty good. What about you guys?
Wait, what was the worst Stephen King book
altogether?
Yeah, of the list that you read.
Of the most recent ones, it was Dr. Sleep. But even that was entertaining,
Okay.
I mean, the worst one of all time is the Tommyknockers. Jesus Christ.
That's so
horrible.
basically it's been like exclusively Stephen King.
Yeah, I have not picked up anything but Stephen King in the past 4 months. And I've read like stacks of. I just about to finish another one, his short story collection, The Bazaar of Bad Dreams.
Okay.
which is pretty good. And going to pick up, which is weirdly not part of Patience's collection. Someone sent it to me, The Institute, which a lot of people are telling me is one of the best things he's ever written. Which is his, I think, most recent or next to most recent novel release. But yeah, I read Desperation and The Regulars back to back, which is like his weird experiment with like, I'm going to do one book set in 2 parallel universes. And they're not really connected other than characters have the same name and some similar traits. And the bad guys are kind of, I don't know, it eventually ties in more to each other, but you could read just one. I don't know. It was fine. It was a reason why he didn't do it again.
All right. Russ, what about you?
I just read for the first time Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sleep?
Oh, nice.
Sheep, I should say. Yeah, and it was really good. You know, it's something I've probably been meaning to read almost my entire life. But as a Philip K. Dick book, I think it's fantastic, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought it had a lot of interesting things to say. And it's if you're worried you're just going to be reading a beat by beat, Blade Runner, it's not that at all. It's very much its own thing. So I highly recommend that. It's very short. I also read Space Odyssey, which is about the making of 2001 and is the story of Arthur C. Clarke and Stanley Kubrick's relationship as they made it. And it's fantastic. It's incredibly detailed. If you're a movie nerd, I couldn't recommend it higher. And the guy is a fantastic writer. And the other thing I just read, let me see here. Oh, Moby Dick. I read Moby Dick during quarantine.
No.
Humble brag.
Humble brag.
All right. So was there a point, because I've read it too, and it wasn't that long ago, like maybe 2 years ago, I was like, I'm going to fucking read Moby Dick, goddammit, because everything I love references it, right? Star Trek Wrath of Khan, obviously. And it was, at first, I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then he starts getting into all the nautical shit, and you're like, I really, for the first time ever, seriously considered just going to buy a Cliff Notes of a novel to get through it. I was like, oh my God.
I understand that. I think I had read, after I finished it, I read a lot of things about, so many things have been written about reading Moby Dick, which I thought was really fascinating. And somebody had told one of the writers, the best way to read Moby Dick is with a glass of scotch and 2 chapters a night. And I think if you're not trying to get through it really fast and you just let the book wash over you and only try and read 2 chapters a night, I do think you might get something out of it. It's probably not for everybody, but I do think it is on the level of reading something like Shakespeare. I felt that the book did deliver on that level, but I agree with you. There were some chapters I thought, okay, I'm not going to read 5 pages of categories of whales.
It's almost he's trolling you. Because it's so good when he's not doing that. And you're like, oh, well, I know what you guys are really here to hear about. You want to know about the different types of harpoons that are out there. Well,
some of it pays off. So I don't know. I recommend it, but it is very much a commitment. So anyways, Rob?
I've read, I'm finishing right now. I've read the George Lucas A Life. And then I'm reading currently the Jim Henson biography, both by Brian J.
How is that?
They're both really great. They're really fun to read. They're easy to read. The George Lucas one I really loved. I think I knew a lot of the story, but it's really well told. And I actually really enjoyed all the business stuff and behind the scenes. And then the Henson one I'm in the middle of, and I don't like it as much, but it's pretty great. I mean, it's a really fascinating story. I think Henson's an underrated innovator, but they're both really inspiring. I think they're really inspiring in this idea of they followed their own muse. They only worked for themselves. They did their shit and they really understood the business and they saw the future, and then they were great artists. So that story is really great. I recommend both those if you're, they're really easy to read. They're really fun. They're really entertaining. I read Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me, which was a really good read and pretty powerful. I look forward to reading more stuff from him. And then I read Exhalation by Ted Chiang. He wrote the
I've been wanting to read his stuff.
Yeah, man, I had always meant to, and then Brian Koppelman and Tim Ferriss were talking about it on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and they both were like kind of raving about it. So this is his second book of short stories. The first one had Arrival in it, the Arrival short story, Story of Your Life, and really great, pretty brilliant writer, especially considering the huge topics he thinks about, like huge technological and philosophical ideas are really told in these humanistic, really interesting ways. And he has a really interesting framing device always, who the story is actually being told to. There's always a lot of layers. I really recommend him. I thought it might be kind of an Arthur C. Clarke kind of slow, ponderous thing, and it's not. And it's neat that they're all varying short stories. So I look forward to reading the first book as well.
You're with me on that one on Clarke. Clarke is kind of ponderous, like great ideas, barely understands how to write characters.
That's what this is the opposite. He has these great ideas, but the characters and how the characters are affected by them is in the forefront. So as far as great sci-fi, I can't recommend it much higher. And then there were two stories especially that moved me. So, and then what else did I read? And then I'm reading Garth Ennis's Run on the Shadow, and I've decided to finally go back and try and read all the Grant Morrison X-Men. So
that is a commitment.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll get
done that. It does pay off.
Yeah,
it very much goes somewhere, but it is a long journey. I'm reading Nick Spencer's run on Spider-Man. I didn't realize he had taken over Spider-Man, and I love Nick Spencer. Huh?
Wasn't that who was the one? No, Dan Slott, who had, I think, set the record for the longest continual run on Spider-Man.
I love how Nick Spencer's style, particularly on Sinister Foes of Spider-Man, just that he and his Ant-Man run, that he plays with your understanding of comic books. And Spider-Man, he pulls it back a little bit. It's a little more of a straightforward telling, but his love of minor villains and things like that, and bringing them in and having them do funny stuff with the characters. So far, I'm enjoying that.
So I was going to ask, this is obviously a big one, but movies, last few movies you've watched, anything good, anything great, new, old, doesn't matter. Just,
the skipping stuff that I've reviewed for the site that's already out there, because that's already on the list. I'm actually in the middle of now, but enjoying and going, where the fuck is this going? This Japanese movie called Tap, right? I'd heard about it. I'd seen it several times in the past. It's a relatively recent movie. TAP, like tap, 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 tap.
Is it a remake of the Gregory Hines film?
It is not.
Oh. I'm disappointed.
It's like all these Japanese schoolgirls, and they're on a bus, and the one is like dropped something after her friend like knocks it out of her hands, and she bends down to get it, and something happens, and she leans up, and the whole top half of the bus has been sheared off, and everyone on the bus has been cut in half. They're just spraying blood out. She's like, what the fuck? And like gets off the bus, and whatever it is some sort of invisible wind thing that's chasing her and fucking with her, and she'll be running, and she'll like, these joggers are like coming along, she's like, stop, turn back, go the other way, and they go, huh? And then they all cut in half and fly.
So is it like a real-time movie, or what's the deal?
No, it's not. So she manages to get away and gets to her school, and everyone's, you're crazy, and she's like, wow, maybe that is crazy, right? Maybe like, could I imagined all that? And her friend's like, come on, let's go down, let's sneak out of school, we'll go down to the lake and hang out. And they are that kind of ridiculously silly and adorable Japanese schoolgirl thing where you feel like this is either going to be super cute and they're going to get little animated friends that help them find treasures, or they're all about to have sex. It could go either way, you know? And they start discussing string theory and parallel universes. And in the middle of it, like one of them gets eaten by an alligator that jumps out of the water, but then that's just them going, see, that could happen if we lived in an alternate universe.
Is this played sort of bananas like a Sam Raimi movie, or is it played kind of straight?
I mean, it's got that kind of splatter going on, and it doesn't feel like it's got direct jokes. It just feels abstract and weird, but I'm enjoying it. It's got this post-rock soundtrack. I was like, this is not like normal. It's not like normal Japanese weird. It's different. I don't know what to make of it quite yet.
Okay.
I'm also watching, I just rewatched Clue. I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I saw people talking about it. Yeah, it's still pretty great. I think it's still pretty great. Clue is an all-time classic.
I don't know that I love that movie in the way other people just really have a soft spot for it. Just really, people adore it, and I don't know. It feels sort of flop sweaty, and I don't think it's like laugh out loud funny or anything. But I don't know. I mean, maybe I need to revisit it, but it's never really clicked with me. Humor is the most subjective thing there is. There's movies you all think are hysterical. I look at you blankly and go, "You're kidding, right? This is a joke." So, but we both love a good pun. So that's important.
That is true. I saw We Are Freestyle Love Supreme, which is a documentary about Lin-Manuel Miranda's thing that kind of got him started. Is like a freestyle rap sort of comedy thing that they would go on stage, and they've been on Broadway, and it's like some of the guys from Hamilton are in it, and other people who are big for other things, like Daveed Diggs is in it. And it's just it's not an essential documentary, but it's kind of fun watching these guys who are all best friends, like learning how to do.
On?
It's on Hulu. It's on Hulu. It's really fun. Like Lin-Manuel is one of those guys. He's just so damn cuddly. You're just like, I love that guy. I wish he was my best friend. And then Satan's Slaves, which is an Indonesian film that was made as a prequel to a very popular 80s Indonesian film called Satan's Slave, singular. And I'd seen this before, but I watched it because I was watching the new film by this same director, who's this incredibly prolific Indonesian director who's done all kinds of stuff. And it's really, Satan's Slaves is like their Conjuring.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, is it good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell.
Yeah. I mean, like you gave us the rundown, but I didn't get an opinion. So.
Oh, sorry. No, I love The Conjuring, so I meant that in a good way.
Do we need to see Satan's Slave?
No.
Or can you?
No, because it's a prequel, right? It just jumps in. We won't
Exactly.
get any of the references, but we get the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What are those on? Are those on Shudder? Are those on disc?
That one's on Shudder. They're both on Shudder, in fact.
Okay.
And you can also see the new film by that guy in Pettigore there, which I liked even more, which is more of his folk horror, like the Wicker Man type stuff.
Okay, so we watched that.
Oh, did you like that?
Has an amazing opening, and then the setting is great. It's really interesting. I think the girls are or women, the two female leads are very interesting characters. They're very unusual. That they seem like real people, and they're charming, but they're also flawed. And what's going on with them is very interesting. And I think the mystery of the village, and then slowly it becomes obvious, like you said. It's a Wicker Man movie, and I'm real tired of that structure for movies. They act as though you're supposed to be surprised, and there could be no other explanation about halfway through. So, I see why you liked it. I think for me, the suspense.
Certainly, I think the first half is well worth watching.
I would say if you're a horror fan, check it out. And some people go right, some people go left.
I think that actress who's the lead in it, whose name I'm now blanking on, even though I think I've said it 30 times in the last month, she's great. And she's also the lead in Satan's Slaves, and she's really great in that. And then there's another movie he made that's really weird. We're talking on the New Digital Noise. That is his superhero movie. That's the idea is it's the beginning of a big, giant shared universe of Indonesian superhero movies. And she plays the romantic lead in that. So it's like his
What's that one called?
Gundala.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, which is apparently the second film based on that character. Who knew? There's a huge Indonesian in-country comic book industry that's been around for decades.
Fantastic.
Neat.
Russ, what about you? Have you watched anything? What else have we been watching?
God, what
I do want to say real quick, this Spider John. Hey, John, how you doing? I haven't heard from you in a while. So watching the John Adams HBO series. God, because we just got HBO Max. I'm like, I need to write down all the HBO stuff that I missed because I haven't had HBO for 20 years. And that was, thank you for the reminder. That is definitely, everyone told me that was great. So,
what else?
I'm trying to think if Rob really liked Tread.
Yeah, I watched the Tread documentary on Netflix. It's a true story of this. What my favorite is, it's every Netflix documentary. It starts with the drone shot of the small town, going over the small town main street, and you hear, well, it's a quiet town. People here don't really lock their doors. Every Netflix documentary starts that way.
Everyone.
And then it's about this guy, and the first half of the movie is really this story of this guy who moves to this town, and he sort of tries to build a life in this small Colorado town, and tries to and he feels wronged by the town's political families that he feels that they sort of do him wrong. And there may or may not be more to that. And then in the last half of the film, he builds a impenetrable bulldozer and decides to destroy the town. And this actually happened.
That really happened. That's amazing.
It happened in 2004. And the only reason it didn't get more, it was a worldwide news event because this guy fucks shit up. And it's
we both commented on somebody's Facebook post that was posting about it in the All of Us group, right?
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, we were saying like, oh, I haven't heard of that. Where is that? I think you were like, where is that? So
well, anyways, it's bananas. It's an amazing true story. The film itself is really great because they reenact a lot of it. They have the real footage, which is stunning, but they actually build a tank and destroy shit in a cinematic way, which is really exciting. I think it kind of wraps up a little too quick. I would have liked a little bit more of the aftermath, but it's really something, and it's quick, and it's a very good Netflix documentary, you know. And then we watched The Wretched.
I liked it. Okay, it was like,
I think it was smarter and far more well made and likable and a neat idea. I think it should have been about 15 minutes shorter, and it wasn't quite as sort of madcap fun. And the rules to the witch were a little
wonky,
squishy.
yeah.
But I thought it had some surprises at the end that I felt that it earned. And
I mean, this is weird. Like in COVID America, that was the #1 film in America for a week.
Right.
And you know what? I'm okay with that. It was a cool.
As an independent filmmaker, I kind of think it's neat that these small movies that are getting released, like The Ritual or something, all of a sudden the #1 film in America.
Yeah, there have been several. I was like, I didn't really care for that, but I'm super excited that it's the #1 film in America because it's not a big studio film, and that's fantastic. I hope, if nothing else, for cinema watchers, more and more of like, hey, there is a lot of good stuff coming out in independent cinema is something they learn from this period and start paying more attention to it. I mean, I know a ton of people who recently have subscribed to Shudder because we keep going, there's so much good stuff on there, including stuff that's exclusively on that. You know, like if you're like, I'm running out of stuff to watch. No, you're not.
Well, we finally got the Criterion app, and that has been a treasure trove. I think it's a really beautiful curated app, and all the extras they put on there are fantastic. We, for the first time, watched My Own Private Idaho. I'd never seen that. Wow, that was quite an experience. And I don't think they have the one sequence where River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves are on a motorcycle riding through downtown Seattle, or where they are, Portland, and I don't think I've ever seen two more beautiful human beings in my life, maybe. But it was a really interesting, fun watch. We're trying to get through the 5-hour cut of Until the End of the World, the Wim Wenders movie.
Oh no, yeah, I know. I've talked to people who were so excited about it. It was like, I love Wim Wenders. Well, I like Wim Wenders. There's some stuff I love, but 5 hours, Jesus fucking Christ, man! I just finished Showa.
It's. I don't know that it need to be that long, but it's an interesting experience. It's weird because now it feels like a Netflix miniseries, you know. But he is on to some really amazing stuff with the sci-fi to it and everything. But you know, that's not a film for everybody. I think it's definitely a movie nerd badge.
It's weird when you have a great filmmaker's sort of middle tier movie, but it's 5 hours long. It's a weird thing, but It's been
you know what? If you're a sci-fi fan and an art film fan, I think it might be worth your time. I don't know. Yeah. And then I was just going to mention the Harley Quinn cartoon series, which is thankfully now on HBO Max. Because unfortunately, DC Universe was a great idea that did not pan out. I think that was a really good idea that they didn't execute correctly. Yeah. But watching the second season, which I think is kind of more pathos to it so far, which I was kind of surprised by. It's not quite as madcap funny.
Well, because they have the whole like unrequited love between Harley and Ivy going on, that story. So it actually gets mildly dramatic, but it's still just as insane. And
I love it. I still think it's a blast. I can't believe that show exists. And not only that, but it's as good as it is, because I feel like that's the show people always kind of promise and they don't quite nail. And I think that one, they really nailed it.
And I was so on that same note, I was so pleased to see that the first episode of Star Trek Lower Decks is, while not following the ribaldness of that, is kind of following the same thing. Like if you've got a big fandom with tons of canon in it, you've got to find a way to lovingly make fun of it. And that's what Star Trek Lower Decks is. That there's only one episode out so far, but I really fell for it. I was like, oh, this is exactly what I was looking for. And after watching that, I'm like sitting there, my wife goes, all right, play the next one. I was like, honey, there is no next one. It's this is the first. She looks at me and she goes, play the next one.
So,
and I tried. God help me.
Started drawing it out.
Yeah, exactly. But it's
So
very
good.
funny, and no, it's very it's very funny.
There's only one episode out right now on CBS All Access.
Exactly, and so I'm looking at Marvel, going, "Your turn, Marvel. This is what you need right now." And they've been working on that damn MODOK show forever. That's supposed to be on Hulu.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
With like Patton Oswalt and a bunch of comedians on it. I'm like, yes, please, faster, bring it now.
I'm still curious about the What If show, if they're gonna be able to pull that off. That's a really interesting idea that I think could go another way. But I think it's cool if they want to try their own Twilight Zone. Speaking of Disney, I wanted to mention this before we talk about sci-fi dystopian. The rumor is that Disney is now done with making discs, that they will not be making Blu-rays or 4K discs anymore. I guess their idea is if you want to watch Disney or Fox product, you have got to be a subscriber. I guess that's the ultimate end goal, is complete and utter Darth Vader control of their IP.
I mean, I knew this day was coming, because you remember when they would have the thing where things would be in the vault and they'd be only out of the vault for a limited while. And then they're like, oh, if you want to see it, got to get it, got to pay more for an earlier copy. We don't know when we're putting it out again.
Right.
They want to control in every way when people can pay and how much for their films. I mean, this is all good news to me, because I have really great quality Blu-rays and 4Ks of almost all their animated films. So I'm like, that shit is going to sell for a lot of money. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. I can deal without having, like, I don't know.
But I mean, that means Marvel movies, even Marvel movies, you'll only be able to see on Disney Plus.
That's crazy. And I don't know if it's going to last, honestly. I'm curious to know who is it. Perlmutter who's putting this out?
I don't know, but I mean, like, it seems to have always been the plan, because like a year or two ago, you could, like, all the revival houses they sent out a thing saying, we will not give you any Fox prints, so you're not gonna be able to watch Die Hard at the Draft House or or the New Beverly, and you can't, or the Paramount in Austin. You're not gonna be able to get Fox films. Their library.
Such a strange policy.
Weird policy.
Very weird.
Yeah.
And now, this thing where they're. But I think what's really tragic is not just. I mean, the Disney IP I think is going to be fairly available. Although they control. I mean, speaking of Jim Henson, they have the Muppets, Pixar, their own library, all of Marvel. I mean, it's pretty nuts. Now they have National Geographic.
Still no Condor Man.
Yeah, Russell.
I know. What is that? Right? What is that? No Condor Man?
I would like Condor Man to now be part of the Marvel Universe.
The bullshit continues, Russ. The bullshit continues. So, as if 2010 or 2020 didn't suck enough.
This goes deep all the way. Quanon, or whatever, however the hell you say it out loud, is doing a whole page on it, I think.
What is it?
Oh, God, let's just leave that one where it is.
But I think but I think it's kind of tragic. It's a weird, super corporate move to lock everything down, and I guess their idea
but weirdly I feel Disney has been so stingy with the Fox catalog. Like they own those properties, and they seem to not, they almost trying to bury them, it feels like. And I don't understand the mentality of why you would own such gigantic IP and just not put it out there or make it really difficult to see or buy.
I suspect to some extent this whole thing is at least the conspiratorial New Coke situation. Like, oh, we're going to take it all away. You don't get it for like, damn bug, for like 10 years. And then they're going to go, we changed our mind. We're putting them all out one at a time in super special Superman's Fortress of Solitude Crystal editions. And everyone will be like, I'll pay $100 for that. Shit, give it to me now. What if it goes away again?
That is a long con. That is definitely they have thought that through, if that's true. But wow,
you're never gonna get the Blu-ray of the Abyss.
Somehow I feel that it's less than that. I wish I could feel that there was that big of a plan. But
if they were smart, what they would do is, if they really feel like they've got to go to exclusivity like that, say you can only buy it at the theme park in person.
Ooh. That is brutal.
I don't think they like that, because people would go and buy out the store and then sell it on eBay.
Maybe one per person,
that might be it. That might be the way, I think. Yeah. I don't know.
But I'm pissed at them with this whole Mulan business. Okay, I get the charging $30 for people to watch it. Like, everybody wants to make money from their features they spend $150 million on. Nobody wants to like put it out at home and lose it, because you're going to lose a lot more from piracy that way. A lot more people just aren't going to do it. You know, a lot of people go see movies by themselves, like me, because I'm lame that way. And $30
awesome that way. You're awesome.
Yeah, move by yourself. That's the move.
Best.
That's the move, man.
$30 is not unreasonable for that, because the idea being, oh, well, you'll have people over or your family and you'll watch it, especially a family film like Mulan. Like, oh, it's for a whole family. We're making up for that ticket cost. Okay. But then to say you have to have Disney Plus as a subscriber as well, I'm like, no, Jesus, you see. At first I thought someone was joking when they told me that. I was like, no, they didn't. No, what? Why would they?
If everything we've just talked about, it makes total sense. You know, it's like the Seinfeld episode with he controls the means of production. You know, I mean, they've got it, and they're going to lock. You want to see? We know you want to see that Mulan remake. That's it. This is the only way, especially since they can't put it in theaters. So
right, yeah, I guarantee you, entirely because of this situation, it is going to be one of the most torrented films of all time. People are going to be like, "Well, fuck you then," and torrent it. You know, and honestly, normally I'm like, that's fucking lame. Don't torrent it. Pay it for it if it's an option to do. In this case, I'm like, nah, Disney, you got too close to the sun, man. So you kind of have this coming. I don't know what to tell you.
It's going to be an interesting experiment in the Brave New World, but
yeah, I'm very curious what the thing is for it. But I think they'll make less of people just, you know, either like you said, torrenting it or.
Well, I mean, let me take Mulan out of the equation. Okay. Let's say it's the next big Marvel movie. Would you pay $30
to see Black Widow?
To see Black Widow?
No. I mean, I would, in the terms of like, as well, you're like, oh, I want to do it with a group of people. But yeah, one way or the other, sure. But if you didn't have a subscription to the service and you had to get that subscription as well, I'd probably be pretty pissed off and torn it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know how much more time we have, so I want to get into dystopian films.
Yeah. I was going to say, speaking of Brave New World.
Yeah.
You missed your segue.
I don't know. I wanted to discuss it because I wanted to at least have one topic on here that was sort of a movie review thing. And I did this thread like a while ago. And so I just kind of want to get into these movies real quick and just talk about what they did or didn't get right. Because I think, my big thing now is that's really been a slow dawning realization is that the dystopian thing is here. We are living in the dystopia, although it is much lamer than the dystopia you thought it would be. You think it's kind of going to be this Johnny mnemonic, high tech, low tech, kind of stuff like that. And instead it's just kind of weak sauce,
Just a bunch of assholes.
Yeah, but it's like, but see, I don't know that I totally agree with you. I feel like that's kind of what imagine if you lived in those dystopian things, you'd probably think it was kind of lame too. You'd probably think, oh, well, that's really what I've learned. And I think the other thing I've learned with dystopian movies that I know must be the mentality of the characters within those stories is they're desperately trying to convince themselves they are not in a dystopia. Yeah. And I think that's where we are now. And that has been a real realization for me.
One thing I learned is when they say all the time in those things, bow down before your leader, we're a misunderstanding. It was bow down because they're all doing shit tons of archery for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what that is. Yeah. Chris just had to get in at least one good pun.
Yeah, he did what he could.
Thank you.
So I was going to go with number one, which I think is probably arguably one of the most important movies of the century so far. And that would be Children of Men. These are not ranked, but I would say that one is, as far as phenomenal portraits of dystopia in cinema, I would say it's number one. It puts climate change and the effects of climate change at the forefront. And then also it really, really predicts the immigration crisis and controversy of current times, just who we let in, who are these people trying to get into our country. And I thought that was pretty amazing. It's a stunning piece. Not only is it a great dystopian film, I mean, the vision of that movie is beyond what most movies do. The single takes, the world of the film is amazing. And the single take thing, Russ and I go back and forth on. It's neato, but a lot of times I find that it becomes found footage. It can strand your actors and they look funny while they kind of wait for something to happen. That film just never really suffers from that. People never look awkward or like they're trying to make their mark or get out of the way of the camera as the camera passes through them. It's a one-of-a-kind movie.
I don't know why it didn't win every single
It
award.
really, it's weird that we knew then when it came out it was amazing, and it's weird to me that people slept on it and didn't really. Oh yeah, Children of Men's a classic. And I knew that in 2006. I don't know why. It should really. I wish it was one of those movies that kept showing up in the cinema.
It was nominated for 3 Oscars and 3 BAFTAs. It didn't win any of the Oscars, but it won Best Cinematography and Best Productions Design at the BAFTAs. It's shocking to me. That was unquestionably the best film the year that it came out in 2006. I mean, it's a masterpiece.
We
I remember that just being so devastated by that single shot as well, just from a visual. That's just visual. The stories and acting is amazing, but that whole long war scene single shot, you're like, this is a technical achievement. Of course, since then we've had like entire movies that are filmed in a single shot, like multiple.
But I never felt like there was a gimmicky show offness like there is to 1917. I just or was it 19
or Birdman?
I just, those movies I feel like really try and make sure that you know that, whereas I feel Quran uses that to make his movie work in a way.
That's actually the thing I'm probably interested in the least in the movie is the single shots. I love the movie itself so much and the world of the movie.
It could have not had that gimmick, and I think still just the thing where he looks down the hallway and the Statue of David's there, and just all those amazing little ideas.
Pink Floyd pig.
The Pink Floyd pig and everything. I was going to go number 2. A highly overrated and also a highly underrated, little like not spoken about enough film, and also one of my favorite subgenres of dystopian, the LA dystopian noir, Strange Days by Catherine Bigelow. Not a film that I think is pretty forward thinking. It really gets the idea of self-broadcasting. It's watching it now. It goes after systemic police violence and racial profiling, and this is a film that's 25 years old, and it was biting then, and it is biting now. And then the body cam idea, the idea of self-broadcasting and the need to self-broadcast your own life, it's really ahead of its time. I'd say Bigelow has turned out to be a really exciting, interesting director. She always was, but my thing, I'd say that has a few flaws. I think that the device itself, I wish looked cooler. Kind of looks like a weird squeaky.
I think they want to make it more real.
But I think Fiennes, as Ray Fiennes, casting him was a real coup. He's a really neat main guy, and he's kind of a scumbag, which is great. Written by Jay Cox, the film critic, who also go on to write with Scorsese, and then James Cameron, who gave it to his ex-girlfriend Catherine Bigelow to direct. And she was a great choice. She's more than up to the task, and. I think it's a pretty visionary film, and then and I think it really spoke to a lot of millennial changeover fears, which was really neat. Plus, it's got my boy, what's his name, Michael Wincott. Yeah, Michael Wincott in it. Never enough Michael Wincott in any movie as the bad guy, who was originally supposed to be played by Bono.
No shit.
Yeah. Some great stuff. The opening. Speaking of single takes, the opening heist, all done from the POV of the guy, and he jumps across the roof. All this stuff's great. Tom Sizemore in his skeeziest Tom Sizemore gross stuff, but I think a real prescient film that's pretty entertaining. I think that
Sizemore, like him being at his grossest is pretty gross.
Really something. He's really going for it.
It was definitely that was his good run.
Yeah, he was working for him rather than against him.
Listen, it's so weird that people don't put Bigelow by default on the list of the great directors, because she's done so many movies that nobody realized how good they were till later, and it wasn't till The Hurt Locker that someone started going, we should start considering her like an Oscar type director. Which
you look at her filmography: Near Dark, amazing, cowboy vampire movie, Point Break, which I guess gets you can make fun of it, but as far as what it is, it's a flat out blast of a movie. A lot of cool ideas. It's really, Point Break. You can watch it on a million levels. It's so much fun. And she was the one who got Keanu Reeves as an action star before anybody else. And then Swayze's great, some amazing stunt work, and then Strange Days, she's making sci-fi noir. Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30,
Detroit.
Detroit. You like Detroit more than we do, but
I love Detroit. Yeah.
But I respect it as an interesting, as an effort in a move towards something, and so I think she should be wished about more as one of the great. But I think also that she worked in genre was really neat. I mean, her 2.0 version is obviously more prestige-y, but that she was really interested in these kind of weird movies. So moving on, The movie that Russ quotes the most as far as the one that gets it right, RoboCop. Paul Verhoeven's.
Oh,
the 85,
picked the wrong picture.
1985?
87.
87?
Yeah.
Amazing. Did I mess you up, Chris?
No, well, you put them on a list when you sent them to me,
I may have
went
messed
out of the
order
list.
up.
So
I wanted to mention RoboCop.
that's actually a great picture of Russell at the RoboCop screening.
Just the best fucking movie. Paul Verhoeven's vision of the future is probably, I would say, the closest to what our future is like. Corporations controlling municipalities and politics. The entire corporatization of government and the ruthlessness of it, and the inability of the common person to stop it and also be crushed under it and become sort of part of the machine itself, whether you like Welcome to the Machine, and the militarization of the police. I mean, it's on it. And then plus the sort of crappiness, the general crappiness of it. The world is sort of hectic and it's slightly futuristic, but our future from their future is not that different. TVs look a little different. But the rest of it's pretty much the same. And, I think that the idea of militarized drone police officers, it's a brilliant film. And I think
the whole thing was showing all the problem with guns and violence in regular society, but where it had just been normal to society at that point. Like in the film, there's like schools with kids with guns and stuff, but no one thinks that's weird.
It's a genius film. And I think Verhoeven's stunning, almost Nabokovian academic take on material, this sort of artistic cinematic take, and then it's also mixed with this very lowbrow satire. It's pretty genius, and I think the idea that he smuggles it into what's essentially a sci-fi action flick is amazing, and I think he perfects it in Starship Troopers just as much. But I think RoboCop's, really just this amazing one-of-a-kind film, and weirdly emotional at the end.
I think what I want to say about all these movies we just talked about was watching them at the time. They made you very uneasy because you did see we're about one or two clicks away from that,
right?
And I think you knew at the time that's one of the things that made those movies so scary. And now to sit back in 2020 and go, I'm really upset how right these movies were. And to realize in a way, we've almost gone past them. I don't.
They seem quaint. You're kind of like I would trade things for that. I would rather be in that situation.
There's dystopian stuff from like the 70s that we're like, oh, we passed that 10 years.
Yeah, we blew through that guardrail. Next, I was going to bring up John Carpenter's masterpiece, one of his many, They Live, which I think is. I blew me away then, which I think it was a comment on Reagan's America, but there are moments in that movie, it gets right, the sort of fracturing of the haves and have-nots, and then the resistance from within, and the have-nots sort of sleeping on what's being done to them. And then I think, if you watch that movie, there are lines in that movie that my blood just runs cold, where the preacher says, all around us, all about us, are our owners, perched on us from birth to death. And then the broadcast, and he says, they're dismantling the middle class, and everything. And it's all in there, everything that happens. And I mean, just the weird irony of the way they look. And it is a film. It is the perfect B science fiction allegory film. I put it up there with Body Snatchers or The Day the Earth Stood Still, any of those movies. What it gets right, that is a film I have watched. It made me uneasy then, like Russ said, and it makes me uneasy now. And sure, it's amazing with Roddy Piper going, I've come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. But as a political statement, it's stunning that the film, and I think the idea of it is so prescient, it hurts to watch now.
I mean, you've seen how much that meme of the glass, take off the glasses and seeing the reality behind the politics and the social media has become so widespread that like you can't have missed it at this point. For a movie that is a great movie, but certainly not even the top 5 of Carpenter's films for me. Like, it's terrific, but there's at least 5 films better than that from Carpenter.
Really? I would say so. The Thing and Halloween, and what, Escape from New York, maybe.
Escape from New York, Halloween, Big Trouble in Little China, The Thing.
It's about 4. So maybe make the top 5. Might make the top 5, right?
Well, maybe the top 5. Yeah.
Village of the Damned, Ghost of Mars.
We did a whole show on this, people. You
uh,
can go back into the deliberations of
I'm
Doom.
sneaking it back in, Cox. I'm
no,
coming
but
back.
I think yeah, I think it's as good as shit like that gets, though. I think it's a film, really. If you haven't seen it, you need to go back, and there's parts of it that I think people will think are goofy, but it's a film that'll really stay with you, I feel like.
Marco put a comment about RoboCop. I felt like was appropriate. Verhoeven saw the future, and it was violent, tacky, venal, and dumb. I was like, yeah,
he saw us for our true selves. He saw
yes, he did.
That and Starship Troopers together. The Ed Neumeier, who was his writer. Those 2 movies, I just they really make, as Rob has said before, they make your blood run cold.
The fact that everything is happening that's happening, but the number one argument on Twitter is whether or not someone who borrows a bit of stuff from other cultures should be allowed in a sleazy music video. Where have we gone? What happened to us?
That's always who we were. Speaking of that, Idiocracy, which I think is painful to watch. How much Mike Judge got correct in that. I think for me, what I really saw in it was the Britney and K fetishization of the future, that it was kind of going to be this, like, much like that's clever. That's clever. I didn't even get to look at that. Very funny. And very sad, because that's closer to where we are than I think Chris Cox. He's always sneaking a joke in.
It's not a joke.
It's not a joke, but a pretty brilliant film, genuinely funny, filled with Mike Judge's searing and incredibly insightful humor, which I think he is an anthropologist first and a comedian second, in my opinion. What he understands about people and society is amazing, and he has a really amazing way of expressing it. But, he saw the future that, that we wanted, that the people wanted an entertainer to be their president, and not just that, but a reality TV entertainer. I mean, just really.
I think I remember, because we saw it in the theater, and I think Rob said, it's so dark. You think it's this Mike Judge movie, but it's such an upsetting vision of the future.
It is.
I remember Rob telling me he could barely watch certain sections of as funny as the movie is.
It's cynical to a point that you're kind of like, hey, you're like, at points I remember going, hey, calm down, okay? Like, we're not going to be that stupid. And then we got so much more stupid than the film even portrays on some level.
All right.
Yeah.
I think it's weird to think about how many of these movies weren't particular box office successes, and to see the long tail of these films and their place in pop culture.
Yeah.
Next up, I was going to mention V for Vendetta.
Oh, yeah, you got to, man. You got to.
I have something to say about V for Vendetta.
Oh, yeah, the rest of the point.
I have something that... So years and years and years ago, when Alan Moore wrote the comic book, I remember reading an interview, and Alan Moore said, when he wrote the comic, he said, I couldn't just make the fascists these monocle-wearing Nazis. They had to be these real people, these characters with thoughts and ideas and a point of view. And I what I found amazing is to see that Alan Moore was completely wrong about that. That the fascists were in fact these cartoonish Hogan's Heroes.
They had no inner life.
Yeah, and they were buffoons and all this, and that to me was the part of V for Vendetta I kind of couldn't get past, because I found that such a fascinating insight. It was a very informative idea about your writing, to give your villains these inner lives, and to find out that no, it's the complete opposite.
It's Alan Moore's whole style, though. He's always been very like Victorian obsessed and very much a classicist. And this is a 1984-ish vision with a bit of steampunk thrown in. And I get that. I don't know if he was necessarily trying to predict this is what I really think that it's going to look like. But then again, the British are a lot more stuffy than us. If fascism had started over there, it probably would have looked more like that.
Well, what's funny to me is that I think the book is much more of a, like, as you said, the comic book is much more of a 1984 sort of lockdown, grim society. And the movie was funny. It takes me a little bit because it really doesn't seem that bad. It's like, Natalie Portman works at the news station. She looks cute. She's rocking around. I just thought, this doesn't seem very bad. You know, they're sort of censoring the guy's still on TV, her boss being funny. He's like a talk show host. So to me, it didn't seem, and then as it goes on, it gets grimmer, but I always thought they didn't quite calibrate that right. Cause it was weird that it was this, but you know, what's funny now is that I think, fascism is marching the streets, but life seems to still be going on, you know, kind of normal.
Which was the point.
And so it was funny how much that part of it didn't resonate with me then and resonates with me now. But I think that one gets right. The rise of a fascist right wing that becomes fascist, and then the scary, a society that sort of begins to accept the extremities, and then the creeping need for resistance. So great, a really fun movie. I thought, and a movie that really struck me when I first saw it because I thought it was neat that the Wachowskis were pushing for something political like that. You know. Yeah. That in The Matrix, I think it has a lot of interesting themes, but they're buried beneath a very slick movie. And in that one, they went outright. And I thought it would be, I don't know how, I mean, in some ways, I understand that people said, you know, that's not really quite the comic. The comic book, I remember, B is not in the comic book that much. It's very much this multi-character thing. And in the movie, he's much more of a superhero throwing knives and stuff. And I like that. I don't know. I think I like the movie better.
I own a lot the movie from the comic.
Yeah. So, and also this guy made a great point that I always think about. To Alan Moore, basically everybody's a fascist. When he writes his comic books and stuff, it's always everybody's a fascist, you know? It says, he's like, well, the superheroes are fascists. Yeah, but the government's a bunch of fascists, you know? Everybody's a fascist if you're in an Alan Moore comic book. You know?
He's basically Rick Mayall in the young one.
And then I was going to mention The Running Man. I don't know if you have a picture for that one, but yeah, there we go. Richard Dawson killing it.
I couldn't find one that were transposed it into Trump, so sorry.
Oh, yeah. But I think
right? Because Trump ran a game show, but oh well.
It gets a lot of stuff dead on. I think there our need for a reality show to watch people on television act like, be the stars of their own lives and put them through the paces. Obviously the rise of the game show host as a political figure. So, a movie that holds up. I remember seeing it and thinking it was fine. It's not one of Schwarzenegger's best. And
no,
I mean, is he Starsky or Hutch? I don't remember who Paul Michael Glaser. The director is one of the guys from Starsky and Hutch.
But let's not hold.
He also directed Kazam, not to be confused with Shazam, which doesn't exist in this particular Mandela reality. I think a film that holds up as a sort of dystopian flick. And then I'll always mention Omega Man and Soylent Green, Chuck Heston, weirdly making sci-fi, sci-fi flicks.
Well, before you go too much further, let's go into the challenge round.
Oh, shit.
Our theme this week will be, unsurprisingly, dystopian films.
Oh, great.
All these films I have found on other people's lists of what they consider to be the top dystopian films of all time. So no, I'm not digging through the most obscure stuff at the bottom of the barrel to find something dystopian. I'm not, there's some of that stuff is great, but I'm not putting Dead End Drive-In on here. I'm just telling you. So,
okay.
Despite how much I actually have realized that I like that director now, I've come to terms with it. I'm like,
I have never seen Dead End Drive-In.
What? You should see Dead End Drive-In.
Is it good?
I mean, it's crappy good.
Okay.
It's Ozploitation. So it had almost no budget. It's Brian Trenchard Smith, who for the longest time has been considered, was actually to the point where they'd include him in lists of like the world's worst directors.
But that's his biggest claim to fame is Dead End Drive-In, right?
No, actually, it depends on who you ask. BMX Bandits was pretty big for him.
He did BMX Bandits. Wow.
Stunt Rock was him as well.
Never seen that one.
The Man from Hong Kong was a big one for him. And I just recently saw one they're remarketing now as The Quest, but is originally was called Frog Dreaming with Henry Thomas from E.T. It was great. It was like a kid's coming of age.
Yeah. I thought that was The Quest initially.
I think I don't know. The one I have the actual title from the because this is a much older film says Frog Dreaming, and you're like, wow. I mean, it fits.
I see why you would change that title.
How the fuck did that title get that far?
The quest doesn't really mean anything in the context of the film. Frog Dreaming does, decidedly, but it's one of the worst titles I've ever heard. Wow. But anyway, we'll be covering that on Digital Noise. But let's go on into the challenge round for dystopian films. And you guys are like the best people we've ever had on the show.
Oh no, set the bar.
Oh man, this is not
you guys
good.
are crazy good at this, and some of these are easy, but let's take a look.
AI.
Of course, it's AI. The Steven Spielberg. What was it? Wasn't it a Stanley Kubrick script?
Stanley Kubrick developed that from a short story called Super Toys Last All Summer Long, and he developed it for a while. He'd always meant to do it, and he put it away because he didn't think it was possible. And then after Jurassic Park, he got Spielberg involved because he wanted to know about CGI, and then eventually he passed away. It's really going to be his next movie. So yeah, AI.
Wow. Crazy. And I still think I haven't watched it in forever. And you always hear once every 2 years or so, someone's like reconsidering AI. Either no, it is actually bad, or no, it's actually good.
I think there's some brilliant stuff in there. And I think Spielberg's a master filmmaker. And I think he does stick with the Kubrickian stuff. I think the big flaw is there's a blue fairy thing that it's sort of literal that he searches for the blue fairy. And that was people blame Spielberg for that, but he said no, that was Kubrick's idea, and people actually tried to talk Kubrick out of it and said this is pretty literal. But I don't know. I've never really it's such a dark, depressing film. I think it's not really.
And it's so rambling.
Yeah, it's
definitely very long.
Yeah. All right, what's next? Right. Oh, Minority Report.
That is correct.
Moby Dick and Steven Spielberg and
another Spielberg.
You do like that one?
I like it until I don't. I think it has some really huge third act problems, like big, like movie crippling third act.
You mean fourth act problems?
Yeah. I mean, there's stuff that happens that makes no sense in the context of watching the film. You're watching a movie that's supposed to be existing in a subjective reality of its own, and then it breaks all the rules to just do whatever the fuck it wants to. And you're like, that'd be fine if they suddenly went, oh wait, this is actually the Matrix, but that's not the movie that we're watching here.
Yeah. I just tried to rewatch it recently, and it didn't. I wasn't a big fan then, but it just didn't really hold up at all. I didn't find it a great.
It's weird. Revisit. It kind of looks dated. He did that like skip bleach look to it, and I think also there's a weird.
It all looks like a Canadian sci-fi show from 1999. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, and then I think that it has a weird streak of goofy humor, like the throwing up stuff, and then him looking for the sandwich, and it's moldy, it's dumb, and then him chasing eyeballs. It's pretty goofy in places that it doesn't need to be. I think the tone's kind of all over the place, but some amazing Spielberg blocking. Cruise is great to watch in it. Has some great stuff with Samantha Morton and some cool ideas. It's very funny now to watch how dated it is with the big they have the big what is it, like the hard thing they pull out and they have to slide into stuff, and then he's doing all the weird stuff, and you're like, can you just is that just a touch?
Well, what you really think is, can't you just send a PDF, Tom?
Yeah.
No?
Like wait a minute. That hard drive is 1 gig? How did you fit it in this room?
Yeah, but I think it has some interesting ideas. It's interesting to watch Farrell in it, and I think it's weird. Also, he steals literally the beat from LA Confidential, where Colin Farrell, I don't want to give it away for anybody who's seen it, but spoilers for a 20-year-old movie or 19-year-old movie, that Colin Farrell gets shot, and it's the exact same thing as Kevin Spacey getting shot in LA Confidential. I always found that weird that he ripped it off like shot for shot. But anyways, an interesting movie. I think not as successful as I want it to be.
Fair. All right, next one.
Gattaca. Yes, that is an amazing,
truly a great movie.
One of the, it's weird. For me, this director, Andrew Niccol, this film blew me away. It's a film Russ and I go back to constantly. Probably almost every time we make a movie, we steal something from Gattaca. Mm-hmm. It's pretty brilliant, and it's ideas and themes. It's beautiful. I think it's a really amazing film. And if you had asked me who Chris Nolan's career was going to be, it was going to be Andrew Niccol after seeing this movie. He had this beautiful visual sense. He made this very emotional film, but it was really original. And he'd written it. It was a one-of-a-kind film, and it was filled with all this great stuff. Like, I never saved any, how did you beat me when you used to swim as kids? And he's like, I never saved anything for the swim back. And all these great ideas and metaphors. And then his career after that is just
dropped off.
It's a miss.
I'll never
weird
understand
too.
What happened.
He keeps making the same movie. It has the same stuff in it, same beats. I'll never understand what happened.
If he'd made Gattaca over and over again, I would have been fine with that.
Yeah, and instead, but I don't know if you guys saw Anon. That's pretty bad. Speaking with Clive Owen in it, that's on Netflix. It's really disappointing. Lord of War is almost all voiceover. It's like this whole Goodfellas voiceover.
People loved that movie, and I was like, "You've seen this movie already."
It's so boring. It's just such a.
He doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't figure it out like Scorsese does, and then Simone is terrible. It's just a really goofy movie. I don't know, but Gattaca I love. I think if you haven't seen it, that's a movie I recommend to people on a near constant basis. If you haven't seen it, it's a really lovely movie.
Fair enough.
So, yeah. Oh, Snowpiercer.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. I guess a movie I should have mentioned as far as the have and have nots. If you like Snowpiercer, you need to read Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. It's basically
even if you hate Snowpiercer, you need to read Cat's Cradle.
One of the great books of my life is Cat's Cradle, a book that changed.
My favorite book of all time.
Yeah. But a very much similar in the haves and have-nots, and the sort of that it's your design, that society designs you to be in a group and then pits those groups against each other. And I think Snowpiercer is a really amazing idea of that. Russ doesn't like it as much as I do.
It's okay.
Do you love it, Chris? You love it, right?
I had very mixed feelings about it,
Okay.
honestly. There's a lot of stuff I really love about it. And I mean, this director, well, shit, he went on to do Parasite. I mean, like, he's great. I'll go through his movies and go, wow, almost everything you've done is at least really good. And this kind of falls under really good, not great for me. It gets a little... Its allegory is so overt and on the nose that there's points I'm like, okay, I totally get it. I know I'm supposed to totally get it, but it's still kind of, it's just hard to take seriously because it's almost absurdly on the nose, because it's so implausible. It's so insanely implausible.
I've just bought into the premise of the movie, but I get the.
Did you watch the show?
Yeah, I watched the whole season. I thought the show was okay. In fact, in some ways, the premise works better as a show, because you're like, oh, you've got all these different groups of people that the movie really kind of skips over that. You're just got this one group busting through them all and a couple mustache twirling bad girls. And it's okay. It's got some cool stuff in it. Really cool, really well shot. The show's not anywhere near as well shot. It's not anywhere near as well acted, except it does have Daveed Diggs in its lead role.
Yeah,
Man,
that's kind of cool.
Dude, I totally got a man crush on that dude. He's awesome.
Yeah, he rocks.
He does.
Right, what do you got?
Oh, sorry. Keep talking because I forgot to put the next one up.
I'm very. Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll check out Snowpiercer. I don't know. I'm not. It's probably gonna go to Netflix or something.
Low on my list.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know that they got a pilot. I know that Scott Derrickson did the pilot, and then they took it away and redid the whole thing.
They redid it. They used almost nothing from it either. He's still furious about it.
I wonder what happened. I'm always curious about my biggest thing. I was going to mention is one of my biggest things is we actually see Chris.
I didn't know that. They did the premiere at the Alamo, and they did this whole thing where you took a train out to where they were doing the with the Rolling Road show with the inflatable screen outside. So they did a train, and they had a sushi chef on there from Tokyo who was making sushi, and then they were given these black cubes of goo, like in the movie, that were actually made from insects. So it was like crunched up insect protein.
Did you do it?
Indeed.
Did you eat it?
Oh yeah, it was repulsive.
Was it
It was terrible. No, it was terrible.
Oh, wow.
But there were a few free drinks on the train and all that. It was like a whole thing. So I'm sure they probably got some footage of me out there. I did not know that.
This whole thing's a giant humble brag. Guys, we just need to take a second out so Chris can tell you how cool his life is. So I just need to
about the time you ate bug goo.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go to the next one before this gets embarrassing.
Speaking of, that looks like
that's
Soylent Green.
Soylent Green is people, everybody. If you didn't know, Soylent Green is people. Which, by the way, Chris, I was going to ask you this. Did you watch the show Millennium with Chris Carter's Millennium with Lance Henriksen?
Yeah, but it's been forever. I
don't know if you remember this, but he had Frank has Lance Henriksen's character has 2 passwords, I believe, on his computer, and the first one was Soylent Green is people, and I think if I remember correctly, he says that's ridiculous. I don't want that to be my password, and the guy says that sentence actually contains almost every human inflection you can do with your mouth or something like that. So it's actually a really good password. And I always think about that. And his other password, which I loved, was open the pod bay doors, Hal. So
nice.
Anyways, but
mine and I've never used it as a password because it was too obvious for anyone who knows me, but I'd have cellar door for similar reasons.
Oh yeah,
right. Yeah.
The most beautiful phrase in the English language. Soylent Green, not a film I revisit much, but a film I do love, and I think is one of the is starting to feel more and more likely as things go on. So,
most certainly. And Soylent Green is the one where I'm like, wow, 90% of the apocalyptic stuff in there has happened.
Right.
I mean, that's an environmental disaster film, and we're like, yeah, we're kind of already there and just pretending like we're not because we're in the most powerful country in the world and we don't have to deal with the effects of it yet, but we will.
Yeah. So what do you got? Never Let Me Go.
Man, you guys are too good. That's all I'm saying.
So this film is really interesting. I read the book by
Japanese author, correct?
Yeah. He wrote Remains of the Day.
Ishiguro.
We're gonna mess up his name.
Yeah. Well, he's born in Japan, but has lived his whole life in England when he was.
My friend was teaching a dystopian novel class, and he actually really recommended the book to me. So I wasn't super excited, but I got it anyway, and I read it. It was a bit of the snooze I thought it would be. I think my biggest thing with sci-fi or genre is when the author seems to not really kind of goes out of the way to say, I'm not really interested in the sci-fi aspect. I'm really interested in these other things. And dude, fuck that. Then don't write a sci-fi novel. And that one felt a little bit like that. The idea was really neat that it was an alternate history, London or England. And it's sort of in these small things, and these clones are raised and then they, to be spare parts for these people, but they have to keep them healthy, and they realize what's going on. And it's a pretty sad and depressing story. And I thought it was very dry in a lot of ways. So I've never seen the movie, which I guess I meant to, but I knew it would just be a bummer. Mark Romanek directed it, who was supposed to direct The Wolfman, but he directed 1 Hour Photo. And
this was supposed to be Alex Garland at one point.
Well, Alex Garland wrote the script.
Yeah.
And Garland was great because I listened to this really wonderful interview with him and the author together. And they made a really interesting point about why do the clones at the end sort of elect to not really escape? Why don't they try and escape? Which I think is a big theme in dystopian books. And Garland made this really great point, which was, he said, when people get cancer, what they don't say is, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest. What they say is, I just want to go back to my life. I don't care what it is, my shitty life, no matter what. I just want to go back and work in the office. I had it good, and I didn't know how good I had it. And right. I think that was a really wonderful message that I wish the movie was more interesting about, or the book was more interesting about. So, but yeah, Never Let Me Go. What else you got for me? That was an interesting one. Yeah.
Alphaville, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Again, a movie that Russ goes, Jean-Luc Godard's funny. Other Worlds Film Fest, which is here in Austin. It is a phenomenal sci-fi and horror film fest that we have been fortunate to be featured in, and then also help pick shorts for. They are doing a series this summer where they choose a movie and then they do a Zoom book club kind of about it. And they picked that one. And we had a Tessa was there. She's in the comments. She's one of your reviewers, and she was great. But we talked about the movie. Russ, I should stop railing because Russ wholeheartedly, unabashedly fucking loves Alphabet. I love it, but Russ loves it.
To me, it's the perfect example of so many kinds of movies. And what I really love about Alphaville is Jean-Luc Godard, not an easy filmmaker to get into, one of my favorites, but that is a film. I feel that is sort of when you go to Jean-Luc Godard and you hear he makes genre movies, but he plays with genre and all this kind of stuff. He does that. He has made this sci-fi movie that I think is as good as any other sci-fi movie you can put up there. And you can tell he has no budget, but it is beautifully shot. It is this vision of the future, and it has all the great stuff in it. It has all the noir things you want from it, and all the sci-fi things you want from it, and all the art film and all the Godard stuff. It is a movie I go back to over and over again, and it is a movie I think about when Rob and I try and make films. what did Godard do? How did he convey this vision on his budget and really nail it? And I think
there's no sets. He just
it's a movie of
ideas.
Yeah. And I know the Summers brothers take a lot of crap for that, but when I tell people, look, you don't have to make the giant sci-fi movie with all the special effects and the sets and everything. Have the great idea and convey that in a really exciting way. And I think that's what he does. I can't recommend a movie higher than that. I just love that movie.
It is not let me say this though. It is not a date movie.
It is not a date movie. But I would say, yeah, it's not necessarily a Friday night, I've had a really long day movie, but it is a film. It's not boring. I mean, it's not a boring movie.
I don't think so, but certainly it's a Venn diagram of some of Russ and I's interests, which is, sci-fi and, French New Wave and black and white cinema. But it is a beautifully shot film. It's really cool. And it's got a lot of great existential ideas and stuff. So anyways, we ramble on about that.
A lot of people think it's Godard's best film. A lot of people.
In a lot of ways, I think it's his most fun. I think the other ones can feel a little bit like sitting through a museum installation or sort of film school bullshit. Like I got to write a paper on them. Breathless should be more fun. Everybody's like, oh, it's a noir and this and that. It's really not like that.
I would say Alphaville has a story.
Yeah,
that is probably the one thing that it has, as opposed to all the other Godard movies, which almost play with your idea of what a story is.
Do you like Chris? I don't know if you've ever really talked about it.
No, I do. It's been a long time since I've seen it. Like, it's really long
a film time. I think as you get older, you might have less patience for, but you never know. So
A Weekend is probably my favorite, but I'll fully admit there's not really a story. It's more of it's a critique, not a story.
Yeah. Look, I just wanted to say, I saw the other day that Weekend is listed in HBO Max's action section.
Oh, Jesus.
I can't do any more Godardian.
There's that one scene with lots of gore in it.
Yeah, there you go. If you're looking for action, it's like Triple X Day of the Union or Weekend.
Yeah, a 5-minute unbroken tracking shot of parked cars is pretty action-packed.
The guy going, well, it looks like that was the last Rambo movie. What? There's got to be another Rambo movie. No, but HBO says this Weekend thing looks like kind of a Rambo type thing. All right, let's put it on.
Did you have any other challenges or was that it?
Oh no, I got more challenges. We go to 10.
Oh, bring it. Oh, the Gun Kata one with Christian Bale. It's one word.
Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, here's a hint. Sean Bean dies in it.
That is not a hint.
So
any movie in cinema history could be up for this.
I don't think I would have got, if you hadn't told me that, I don't think I would have gotten that.
Yeah.
A sort of underrated, fun, junky movie.
Yeah,
I had a friend who loved that movie so much, and he said no one had stolen more DVDs. Like that DVD had been stolen from him 3 or 4 times.
Jesus. Well, you know what? Probably I remember hearing the same thing from people who worked at video stores, and it's because it was this movie that had a cult following among regular Joes, if you will, and the big video stores weren't buying 30 copies of it. They were buying like 1 or 2 copies of it, and it was always checked out. So people would be like, fuck that, I'm going to steal that shit.
In Dystopia, copies of Equilibrium are now currency.
I remember going, there's so much that's really cool about this movie, and there's so much that's actually kind of dull.
Yeah, it isn't quite as awesome as I wish. It's more the cliff notes of what it should be than the actual meat of it. But to mix metaphors, but everyone in this movie, everyone in that movie. Charles, you make an excellent point. I can't argue with that. Yeah,
I'm stealing that.
Still, the Gun Kata is it's a stupid idea done well.
Yeah,
I think but it's funny. Did you see his next movie with Mila Jovovich?
Ultraviolet. What was his next movie?
Ultraviolet.
I don't think I ever got around to that one.
It is the bad version of Equilibrium. Yeah. A lot of it's fake green screen and sort of really overdone. And he kind of tries to go next level with the Jim Cotta, but it's all fakey CG. It's terrible. He
literally has not been allowed to direct another film since then. He has coming up the remake of Children of the Corn. So
and he did write the Point Break remake.
Well, he wrote a bunch of stuff. He wrote Law Abiding Citizen, which was one of those junky movies I kind of liked. Street Kings, which is one of those junky movies I kind of like. Salt, which is one of those junky movies I kind of like.
I'm sensing a pattern.
Total Recall, which was, unnecessary, but it's not hateful. I mean, why make it was the problem. Point Break was actually hateful, the remake. It was awful.
Honestly, my review on Letterboxd of Point Break is seeing this film, I'm not sure that we should survive as a species. That's my take on the Point Break remake. It's that bad. It's unwatchable. That's fair.
Well, what about this one?
One of the all-time great ones is Dark City.
Correct,
if you have not seen Dark City and you are listening to this podcast, that is probably a film that you would, or any of podcasts on Chris's network, Dark City is your jam. It's an amazing film. I will say this: do not watch it if you cannot watch the director's cut. The director's cut is fantastic, and I can't even point to exactly how it's. I mean, it's more just that it's a little fleshed out and left to breathe. But the film I had seen the regular theatrical cut multiple times, and I had always felt it didn't quite click, and I was sort of frustrated by how close it came, but it wasn't there. And then when I saw the director's cut on Blu-ray, it is bizarre how
I would say the only thing that kind of comes close to that is Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Just seeing how these little tweaks and taking out some both movies, by the way, where they took out the voiceover, really made a difference to the director's vision of the movie.
I'll tell you, I think the theatrical cut is just fine, but the director's cut is better. I don't have any problems with the theatrical cut. Watched it multiple times in the theater. And remember, this is the same year the fucking Matrix came out, and it's like a dividing line with people of like, which do you prefer? You probably like both. But which do you prefer of these movies that ultimately have a very similar idea at their core?
Technically, Dark City should have been released before. I think it's the year before. It's 98, right?
Yeah, 98. Yeah.
It's 98. And actually, it should have been a year before that, but they sat on it too long. I will say this about the theatrical cut, if you haven't seen it in a while, it's too fast, and that's why it doesn't work. It's more like, again, it speeds through what's happening so fast, you can't really process it, and it doesn't unfold in a way that draws you into the story. But everybody I've ever shown that movie to
I think the other thing I loved about Dark City was it came out, it made no splash at all. Yeah. And Roger Ebert championed that film.
Best film of the year.
I can never get over that, and Roger Ebert got a lot of stuff wrong, but man, when he got stuff right, I just love that.
I tend to be more of a Roger Ebert guy myself. I would say his numbers are better than any other famous critic in history.
Well, I think what I love about Roger Ebert, and I don't know that he always followed his own rule, but he had a tenet that I always think about, which is judge the movie on its own terms. What is the film trying to accomplish? Does it accomplish those things?
I learned more about judging film in an open-minded, capable way from Roger Ebert than I ever learned from reading from Pauline Kael.
I was just going to say that I've never understood the love for Pauline Kael compared to Roger Ebert.
I think Kael's amazing. She writes terrific stuff, thoughtful stuff about movies, but she does not and never did get how to get past her own biases.
Right.
And it drives me crazy reading them. She's incapable of it. And Ebert was the guy who created the theory of doing that, I believe. Mm-hmm. He was the first director to say, we need to come up with new ways not director, but critic. We need to come up with new ways to gauge cinema now that it's become more of a pop art.
Yeah. And I think, Dark City is the perfect, one of the perfect kind of
examples.
Yeah, examples of that. I feel like, a truly great film.
I was just going to say, it's one of the only movies he recorded a DVD commentary for. In fact, he volunteered, all but insisted on doing it. And from what I've told, he didn't even take a paycheck for it, that he was just so excited about it, couldn't wait to talk about it at length.
Well, also, I believe David Goyer and Lem Dobbs are on there. And because David Goyer worked on it. And then Lem Dobbs, David Goyer, and Alex Proyas, all three of them worked on the script at different times. And it was interesting to listen to them talk about who came up with what. I think Goyer's not on there. It's just Lem Dobbs. Lem Dobbs wrote The Limey and Kafka for Soderbergh. My only thing with Lem Dobbs is he kind of dogs on Jennifer Connelly a little bit in the commentary, and that rubbed me the wrong way because I thought, bro, you don't have an Oscar. Like, you're not Jennifer Connelly. But anyways, But if you haven't seen Dark City, the Blu-ray is the director's cut, and it is phenomenal, and a really one of a kind film, and I think one that deserves more. I wish it was on something more frequently, like Netflix or something, where people were, check that out. But anyways,
it's a classic I return to again and again.
Truly a classic.
Yeah, there's so much going on. Yeah, listen to the director's commentary as well as Ebert's on there. What else you got?
Our final number 10.
Oh, Logan's Run.
I went out of my way to pick pictures for films that I know you guys have seen that were like didn't feature the main characters or were off or like not the pictures you see again and again. Like I would have seen this and gone, I have no idea what that is. And I've seen Logan's Run like 10 times. You guys, I told you, you're the best there is at this.
Oh, thanks.
Isn't that Michael York there right in the
I can see that he's a little hidden. He's kind of not a film. The first half of that film I love. I feel like the second half's kind of a snooze, but I do love its sort of weird disco future. And then young Farrah Fawcett, pretty great.
I always forget she's in it.
It is one of those films that they've tried to remake. I don't know how many times, and it always fails. It's been a fascinating watching that, but it is a movie. I am surprised that somebody hasn't done a really. It's certainly ripe for a good remake.
It's a really.
Isn't all YA literature just inspired from Logan's Run?
Really great point. Yes, it is.
It's pretty much all evolved from that.
Which is funny because the film doesn't have that feeling at all.
Yeah,
but that is funny. That it's a really good
it is. It's basically the Hunger Games.
I'm stealing that. That's great.
It's who directed it?
Oh God, is it Anderson?
Yeah, you're right. It's Michael. I think is it Anderson?
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
but yeah, it doesn't quite. It isn't as much fun once they leave the world and try and escape. But pretty good stuff. I like.
I've had a crush my whole life on Jenny Agutter because of that film, though.
Oh my God!
Oh, good. Yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot of good looking people in that flick. So
and all half naked.
Yeah, that's not hard either.
I was thinking maybe was that the last one, Cox?
Yeah.
I was waiting to see if maybe Quintet was going to be on there.
Whoa,
there was a lot of almosts. Yeah. There was a Tartakovsky film that was almost on there.
Was it Stalker or was it Solaris? It was Stalker.
Stalker, yeah. I don't know if Solaris counts as dystopian.
I guess you're right. This is not really dystopia. It's sci-fi. Yeah. What about I'm trying to think if there were any other great dystopian ones recently.
Brazil.
Oh,
Brazil.
Oh, yes. Brazil. Oh, God. Yeah, one of the great. Would you like the 1984 flick, the Michael Radford one?
It's been a while since I've seen it. I remember thinking it was overlong and a bit too dry, but generally good.
Yeah. It is funny that there's not a definitive 1984 movie.
That I feel like that one gets the look and feel of the book right. More than almost any other stuff is ripped it off, but I feel like that one does look the way you picture it in when you read the book. So
yeah.
Well, great. I wish do we have any trivia questions for Chris? I feel like we should have trivia questions for Chris.
If he wants to do.
I don't know if I have any, but I was gonna say, I feel like I should
know. It's so on the spot here.
I know. I think you're good, but well, shit. That was most of my stuff. I think that I ran through. I got all the dystopian. Now that we're living the dystopian, I was gonna ask do you have something that's next on your list that you're excited to check out?
Oh, I always do. I mean, there's so much stuff. Actually, I afforded myself a little bit of a gap right now of watching because we've got so many people that now are doing One of Us with us and are watching these VOD screeners and stuff that's on Netflix or HBO or whatever. And it was one of those like, okay, I had a whole bunch of television shows and movies on this side. And now I have about 2 weeks where I don't have anything except for, I think, Star Trek Lower Decks, which is like a half hour a week. I'm like, good. Because my digital noise stack looks like this right now. And I have a billion other projects. We're talking about resurrecting the audio drama or doing a different type of audio drama again for the site. We're talking about lots of other new content. And I never have time to do any of it because it just so much stuff already. I mean, I'm constantly either watching stuff, writing about stuff, or doing tech behind the scenes stuff, which is organizing that many critics is a task in and of itself. Let me tell you, or reviewing it. I mean, it's nonstop for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. What's the coolest disc you've got for coming up for Digital Noise? Anything super cool?
There's been some stuff stuff I've already seen. I mean, they finally put Sunset Boulevard out on Blu-ray, so that's cool. We got like the Criterion of the Cameraman, which is pretty cool. Baccarat, you may have heard stuff about that of people seeing it. That's a pretty cool dystopian like film. It's an odd little, I don't know how to describe it. It's weird Western. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but in its own way, it's like I want to say it's Brazilian. I can't remember off the top of my head, but really, really good. God, I'm trying to think of what Lucky Grandma. Finally saw that, which is everyone was raving about on the site. It was really good. We've got that Gamera collection to go through, which have mixed feelings about because I'm not the world's biggest kaiju guy. I mean, I respect the hell out of it. So one of my best friends in the world, Matt Frank, is really into it. It's his career. And I see him and I'm like, they're adorable.
Yeah, I've never seen the first Godzilla, and I've been meaning to go back and watch because I think it's on Criterion now.
Yeah,
so I think we may go back and watch it. I did see Shin Godzilla, and I saw it in the theater, and I was really excited, and I thought it was not all that great. I thought it was amusing that they went for this weird bureaucracy satire, but Godzilla himself was kind of a bummer. I didn't get it. I was like, this isn't fun.
It felt like if they did a remake of it in America, but with what's his name from Veep writing it.
Oh, Armando Arnucci or whatever his name is.
See, and that's how Matt tried to sell it to me. He's like, you would like it in that context. The problem for a lot of people is that so much of that is about the tone and the speed that people are going back and forth and the comedy that relates to the politics of the area. And you don't know anything about, I don't know anything about Japanese politics. And it's referring to all this internal stuff that's very just like, apparently crowds there were uproariously laughing, watching those scenes, and here we're like, I didn't even know that was supposed to be funny.
Yeah, I got it, but I think it started to be because they're like, we're forming this committee and then we're forming this committee, and I was like, okay, I get it, this is funny, but I don't get this isn't a good Godzilla movie. And I did we finally saw Godzilla King of the Monsters, and that was a big miss too, which sucked because it looked like they'd spent a lot of money on it. It was pretty dazzling to look at, but real miss of a movie. So
yeah, I agree.
And I guess they're still going ahead with Godzilla versus King Kong. Again, I don't know if there's a super audience for that, but
I mean, I enjoyed the Skull Island one. I mean, it is fun. Super fun. It like knows how to go. We want to go ahead and give you what you came here for, and it gets right into it. But
that one I feel like got it right, and the other ones have not.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, it was weird it was weird. I was like, do more of this, and then that's exactly what they decided not to do. So
Spider John says, go with Godzilla Final Wars. Completely agree. Like,
is that the one is that the one from like 2004?
Yeah, it's one of the later ones,
and directed by the guy who did the Versus movie and stuff.
That I don't remember, although I do like the Versus movie that you're speaking of.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Godzilla Final Wars, like every single Godzilla monster, and then a version of the Power Rangers, basically. And
I think I tried that one and it didn't click with me, but I'll go back and look at it.
It's one of those. It's super junky. I mean, most of the Godzilla movies are, but it's one that's like it never stops, as opposed to a lot of those where there's just long periods of not shit happening and looking at bad models from a distance. And you know what I mean? I'm just like, I get that's cool. You guys like it. It's just not really, I'm just not super into it.
You're talking to the two guys who will vehemently defend the 98 Godzilla, but that's another podcast. But I know. We'll do that in Batman versus Superman.
God. We should just we watch every Roland Emmerich film.
I mean, I don't know that. But
I just tried to get through Universal Soldier because it was on one of the streaming platforms, and it's not. You can't get through.
It's terrible. It's so bad. I had never seen it before.
It's not fun now. It's not a good movie.
No, I didn't see it when it came out or any time after that. I saw it just recently, like less than a year ago, the first time. I was all excited. I'm like, yeah, everyone always says this movie is great. I had like, I don't know, 19 sequels or something. And then I'm like, this is terrible. Why do people like this so much?
I don't think anybody ever really liked it. It's just that's all there was. So we took it and we were happy.
No, that's fair. That's all we had.
We had. We liked it, and we liked it. We were happy about it. So
we are going to wrap up this show. It's been over an hour and a half. My thanks to the Summers brothers, two of my favorite people in the whole world to hang out with. I miss hanging out with y'all in person. Hopefully that day will come again soon.
Yes.
Yes. And I'll be back in another week with another show. And I don't know what it's about yet. We'll figure it out.